This is the Arthur Moats Show.
What's up, baby? Time to talk those keys for the game. Yes, Steelers on the road versus Cincinnati in the jungle. And when we think about the things it's going to take for the Steelers to get that victory on the road, the first thing I think of is they got to establish the run. When you talk about this Steelers offense, I know they have some injuries in the backfield, but they have to find a way to get that ground game going because the Bengals have struggled mightily in terms of stopping the run. They've allowed over 1,670 yards on the ground, averaging close to 5.3 yards per carry. That's far too much giving up on the ground in terms of yards allowed. Steelers have to find a way to execute in that department, especially when you factor in the uncertainties at the wide receiver position as well. So I think that's the first thing you have to do. Establish the ground game. All right. Now the second thing the Steelers are going to need to do, that pass rush, baby. Yes. Bud Dupree, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, even young Javon Hargrave. You have to think about this. The Steelers have excelled in terms of getting after the quarterback, both in sacks and in pressures. The numbers speak for themselves. Then when you look at the Bengals offensive line, they struggled mightily in that department. They've allowed 36 sacks going into this game, and we're not even going to talk about the amount of pressures they've allowed. They have a lot of uncertainties along their offensive line due to some of the injuries, some of the guys just not playing to their expectations. So this is an element of their game that has to be exposed. The Steelers defense have to expose that because that's going to lead to so many more opportunities for this defense and ultimately for the Steelers to have a very successful outcome come Sunday. Now, the third thing in terms of the Steelers being successful, that turnover ratio. They have to win the turnover battle. When you look at the Bengals, they are minus 11 in the turnover department. Outside of 2 games this season, they've turned the ball over. That's something that the Steelers have to capitalize on. They've done a great job in terms of creating pressure, in terms of creating turnovers. It's only been 2 games this season where the defense hasn't created a turnover. So with that being said, this is the perfect storm for these guys, especially after a rough performance on Thursday night. So this is going to give them an opportunity to capitalize, get some of those turnovers, create that splash that all of us love to see. And that's ultimately going to lead to either the defense scoring themselves or the offense getting the ball on a short field, which definitely bodes well for them. Now, the last thing the Steelers have to do in terms to win this game come Sunday is focus on the moment. And this is what I mean. Thursday night was a crazy game. The ending of it was one of those things we'll never forget. Throughout this whole week, what has the conversations been about? It hasn't been about the Bengals. It hasn't been about game planning. It's been about the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph, Marquise Pouncey situation. So with that being the case, you have to focus in on this moment. Oh, but what's next week? The Browns are coming back into town, so that game is still being talked about. So you're kind of sandwiched in between 2 very large situations in terms of your focus. So it's important that that Steelers team focuses on this Bengals opponent and understands that, hey, we got to take care of business. We know we have playoff implications. We know we had a crazy situation last week and we're going to have to deal with it again in another week. But right now we have to be in this moment. Focus on this Bengals team and get that job done. If they can mentally lock in where they're supposed to be, this should be a game that they win without question. So those are my keys. But you know this, man. I would love to hear your keys. So appreciate you for tuning in. And as always, peace.